Welcome, Nothing Finer. I'm your host, Rick Beach, along with Austin Island. Georgia coming off a tough double overtime loss. South Carolina, kind of a bunch of things have been leading up to this. It seems since Notre Dame, the vanilla offense had 4 turnovers, didn't force any turnovers. Georgia didn't play like they deserved to win. The defense stepped up, but yet again, the defense didn't force any turnovers, didn't cause anything that, could have swung it one way or the other. Just kind of a bland game going through it. Then at the end of the day, you're on the losing side on the scoreboard. Austin, what do you have to make out of it?
I don't want to put any blame on any one person, but I think, Jake Fromm's going to have to shoulder most of this loss. I think, he made bad decisions. Most of the pressure that was getting to him wasn't a lot of design pressure, wasn't a lot of crazy things. The O-line didn't do a horrible job, but when the wide receivers can't get separation and Jake Fromm can't find somewhere to go with the ball, he got a little antsy. He, made some bad throws, the pick six. To me, the defense played excellent, as they have all year. I know they didn't force any turnovers, but, you don't have to force turnovers to win a game. What they did was held South Carolina to a touchdown and a field goal, and, all game, all the way up until double overtime where they hit that field goal. And
right. Well,
if that's not enough to win, then, what is? It's obviously all on the offensive side of the ball.
But you're a team. So if you want to sit here, and we know the defense shut them down, only gave up 10 points. This defense was lights out. But with your defense, your offense ain't getting it. Your offense ain't going to score. You got to step up to make the play. That's what the difference in a really, really good defense and a really great defense, good team and a great team. When you have a defense that can say, okay, obviously holding them to 250 yards ain't good enough to win. Let's go get the ball. Let's go force a turnover. Let's punch it out. Let's pick it off. Let's take a chance on the throw and get a pick. And we hadn't seen that. And we hadn't seen that at Georgia in the last couple of years.
And Richard was there on a couple of throws that he could have picked off, and it just didn't work out. Maybe it got swatted down on one, I do believe. So, we was right there.
But that's the thing. We were right there on a turnover, right there on swinging it. But we didn't make that play. And a lot of it is the disappointment is, and you talked about earlier, this is SEC football. This is what happens.
Yeah.
And we don't want to admit it as fans. We've talked all summer how Georgia has closed this gap with Alabama and with the Clemsons, and especially Bama being, the state over, being in the same conference. And we're a victim of, we thought that was true, and obviously it's not true because Alabama has won, I think, 87 in a row against unranked teams. So this don't happen to teams that's made that jump. And Georgia hadn't made that jump yet.
Yeah.
Whether people want to admit it or not, for whatever reason. And I still think it falls on Kirby being a head coach. And this is only his 4th year. You look over at South Carolina, at Clemson. It took Dabo 6 years to get there. They won 10 games 3-4 years in a row, and he finally bust through in year 6. But Kirby's game management has to come up into question yet again, because we saw, the SEC championship, it came up, the national championship has come up, and it's always been, he's a young coach, he's a young head coach. Well, now it's year 4, he's a young head coach, but it's time for him to say, okay, enough of this crap, let's go for being more aggressive, because obviously this conservative stuff, it's not working at Georgia.
Yeah, and it's not working, and I think some of the personnel they're putting out on the field is kind of wasting our time offensively. When you got a guy like George Pickens, Lawrence Cagerwitz obviously went down with some kind of shoulder injury. We don't know the severity of that. It's kind of a nagging thing that's been going on. Yeah. But then you got Demetrius Robertson and you got Blaylock, and then you got these guys who are so sure-handed. I don't think you've seen them drop many balls all year. And then you take a guy and you put a guy like Matt Landers in, you put a guy like Tyler Simmons in, and you give the ball to them and you're taking the ball out of somebody else's hand who is more explosive.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a problem. I think the rotation at every position offensively needs to be shortened up to the absolute best players you can get on the field, which means, Tyler Simmons shouldn't be seeing the field. I mean, we've seen a ball hit him directly in the face mask, and it ended up being an interception. And I talked about Tyler Simmons off season about how he'd be a impact player. He'd come around and he'd make big explosive plays for this offense, and he hadn't done that yet. He muffed a punt. He doesn't have sure hands, and it's just time to move on. And I don't, I get Kirby wants to pay respect to the older kids that have been here grinding, but he's got to win now. I mean, his job's not directly on the line right now, but it's coming to that point, because you come in and you took us all the way that close to a national championship, and now Georgia fans are going to want one. It's just the way of the world, man. So you got to deliver, and you got to put the right kids in the right places.
the comparable to Mark Richt, it's always going to be there. Everything Kirby does, until he does win a national championship, their records are identical, I think. And the second year, Kirby played one game, obviously more than Mark Richt, so he got the 13-2 instead of 13-1. But when you're looking 2004, which was Mark Richt's fourth year, we had a home loss. We had, I think it was 17-game home winning streak. Tennessee came to town, beat Georgia, I think 19-14. And then here comes, we had a big win before that one. We had a big win with Notre Dame before this one. So it is scary, comparable. But Kirby can't get where Rick got with conservative, vanilla play calling. And this offense, I feel Kirby stuck in 2008, 2009, when Alabama just pounded it with Richardson and Ingram, and they ran the ball. You had the game manager. And no matter what you want to say about Fromm, that's what he is. He is not an explosive quarterback. He's not mobile. The mobility showed up this week under pressure. He got sacked. He had to throw under pressure, threw the pick six under pressure. It's catching up. And these other teams don't have that problem because you got to have a mobile quarterback. The team coming to town next week, or this week actually, is Kentucky, and they took their pocket passer out, and they moved a wide receiver over there, and it changed their whole offense. So with Georgia, you got to think, now Fromm, he's good enough to win. We know he's good enough to win. But if anybody can get pressure on him, it handcuffs us so much. And that showed this weekend, it just handcuffed our offense. Yeah, he had, I think, close to 300 yards. He threw the ball 51 times.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have a lot of yards when you throw it 51 times. And then he overthrew countless throws on the sidelines with the receivers that had to step on people. But James Coley, it falls squarely on with the lack of slants, the lack of wide receiver screens, the lack of screens to the running back. We ran one and it worked and never went back to it.
It seemed like everything Coley had been throwing out there all year, we didn't do none of that. We didn't have any jet sweep action. We didn't really have any kind of screen game. We didn't really have anything across the middle. Didn't get to the tight ends very much. And, there's just like everything Coley had been working towards, he just threw out the window last week. And I don't know why. I don't know what the problem is. And the wide receivers, they was wanting to go deep a lot last week, which is new. I guess they want to be more explosive. But, the receivers that he was putting out there weren't getting separation. You've seen the only guy who really got open on a bomb was George Pickens, and Jake overthrew it. But you got, that's what brings you back to getting Tyler Simmons out and just keeping the most explosive people you have in the game at all times. On offense, you just got.
I get they got to rotate, but when you get in overtime, you got to have your studs out there, and not taking a swipe at Simmons, but this is going to be pretty much a swipe at Simmons.
It's a swipe.
If you're a great player, you're not there 4 years. If you're a great player, you're not there. You're gone. You're going to the league. And for Simmons, you're going to lose to an underclassman. When you're there for 4 years, there's going to be underclassmen coming in that are better than you. And it's not just Simmons. It's all over the field. And we've seen a couple times where players come in and have a mistake. Isaiah Wilson goes down for a little while. The offensive line really struggled this whole game, mostly at the center position. But somebody's got to step up. This can't happen when your pride is your offensive line. Your bread and butter is your offensive line, and they're getting whipped. But then Coley continuously running up the middle. First down, run up the middle, second down. We lived in third down situations, and that's living dangerously in the SEC because now defenses, especially a defense with Will Muschamp calling it around, is going to be aggressive. They're going to attack you, and they knew Jake likes to throw to the outside. They attacked that. They had it shut down. But we constantly did it. Even the Simmons drop, there was defenders right there because they knew that's where the ball was going. So it just kind of led into we got to open it up a little bit. Coley's got to sit down and say, okay, this is what I need to do. And my confidence level ain't high in Coley because you look at his stats when he was at Miami, they were never a great offense down there. And really and truly, that bothers me. That worries me that maybe this is not something that's a 1 week hiccup. What if it leads into something? Because if it's a 1 week hiccup, that's fine. Florida in 2008, they lost to I think they were 2-3 at the time or 3-3 at the time. Ole Miss went into Gainesville, beat Florida. We know that was the promise game with Tim Tebow after it. So sometimes these losses do help. There's been multiple teams have a loss to an unranked team make the playoffs. But what you don't want with Georgia is we might have got exposed to a bigger issue on our offense saying, just go up the gut, shut that run down, get pressure on
because
Fromm,
Coley hasn't even attempted to push the run game out to the edge like we did in 2018. We ran to the edge a lot in 2018. Elijah Holyfield bounced out to the edge, Swift out to the edge. We like pushing out to the edges with the run game. and mixing it up with going up the middle, and Coley's not really doing that. So to me, I think Coley might, this might be a situation where you want to put more responsibility on Jake, and you just say, Jake, you go up there, we'll give you a call. If you don't like it, change the call.
Well, that's what we've heard about Jake all offseason.
Yeah.
Is that was his forte, is he can make the changes.
Yeah.
You trust him enough. So maybe they do. You're looking at Coley, we'll talk about he was 37th, 48th, and 68th at Miami in total offense. You bring him into Georgia, what are you saying, well, he did that with less talent?
Yeah.
But he's got all the talent he can have right now. He's got all the talent anybody in the country. Right. And, yeah, we put up 400 yards because our defense was in and off the field quick.
Yeah.
Offense back on the field. Yes, when we needed that 96-yard, 94-yard drive, we got it. But we had the chance. And the big coaching question, the 55-yard field goal with Rod, you go to the end of regulation. Should we take it? We know the penalty obviously pushed us back on fourth down.
Pushed us out of it, yeah.
So we had 13 seconds. Should Kirby have kicked the field goal with 13 seconds on third down?
No, I wouldn't do that. I'm not mad at him about that.
I think he did what he had to do. We threw a quick out. I think it was the Charlie Warner.
Yeah.
It went incomplete. That's trying to get 6-7 yards to get us a little bit closer.
Yards.
So I kind of get that. And I hate it for Rod missing the field goal in double overtime. That would have sent us to a triple.
Yeah.
But the play calling in double overtime, you held South Carolina. Great play by Tyler Clark to force the field goal for them because they were going for it on fourth down and they didn't get it.
That was an amazing play.
But
and now nobody will remember it because
we didn't give Rich Rod a chance in double overtime because we just assumed he was going to make a 42-yard field goal because the play call. We threw it deep to D-Rob. And was there pass interference? Yes, no. I'm not the kind of person that watches the game and says, we lost because of this play. We lost because we turned it over 4 times, didn't force nothing. That's what loses a game. But for, leaving it on Rod, and then bless his heart, he misses the field goal. So as great as he's been all year, clutch situation, he yanks it a little bit. So we lose that one. But at the grand scheme of things for Georgia, all your goals that are ahead of you, you have everything you want to accomplish is still there. You got to win. You have zero room for error. You have to get through these. And I think for Georgia, they need this week when they play Kentucky to really jump on them and prove a point. Because in 2 weeks, you're going to have a hungry team that's coming in there in Jacksonville, and you can't hiccup in Jacksonville. You can't lose to Florida.
You can't lose it all now.
Nobody, but we can't lose in Jacksonville because then that could cost us going to Atlanta.
Yeah.
So for Georgia, the Kentucky coming in, we talked about a little bit. They switched to wide receiver at the quarterback. That Lynn Bowden, he had almost 200 yards rushing, had close to 100 passing, but he was 7 of 11 passing. This is just something else Georgia's got to look out for this weekend because if you let this quarterback run around on you, you could be in the fourth quarter looking up and you're in another tight ball game.
Yeah, well, I think Georgia's gotten a bit better at defending the mobile quarterback since what happened with Jalen last year, which we didn't do a bad job. It's just, you let them get loose on one play and it's so late in the game and it costs you. But, I feel like we'll be able to stop Lynn Bowden now that we got a week of film on him too. Only 11 pass attempts, but, we see what they're trying to do with him. Just get him in space and try
containment.
Yeah, just get him out the pocket and trying to get him to work something, So I think we'll be able to shut that down. But I just want to see more variety from this offense. I mean, I'm tired of I love the jet sweep, but I'm just tired of seeing it. Line up, run to the outside, tall UGA sweep. You know what I'm saying? Get back to what's always worked. Now I know you're talking about a 2008 offense, but there's offensive concepts that have worked since 1954, and they still work to this day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you got to have for Georgia. Talking about 2008 offense. I'm looking more at the quarterback position. It's changed. You can't be a statue back there.
Yeah.
And Fromm's got some wheels on him. He's got decent speed, but he's not that mobile guy. He don't do well under the pressure because he's going to stand in there and take the hit to try to get the ball off, and that costs us on the pick six. Where, we ripped quarterbacks before, 1 read, 2 reads, and run.
Yeah.
But at the age of college football, Deshaun Watson was good at it, and look where he's at in the pros.
Yeah.
These guys are – college football's changing. And to an extent of – it's stubbornness to just say, well, I'm going to do it this way. And then constantly you're seeing these other teams win doing it another way going, well, maybe I ought to do it that way. Now with the recruitment of Mathis coming in last year, it shows that Georgia is, I think, going in that direction in the future.
That's what Justin Fields was all about.
Yeah. So, but with Fields and Fromm, you just had Fromm had that extra year.
Yeah.
He had that, that matter. Experience does matter. So you're looking at Georgia's trying, I think, going to get there. But for right now, that's not who we are. We're going to be this standard team. And in the future, this offensive line is the linchpin of if they continue to play like they did against South Carolina, we're not going to struggle against Florida because they got a good front seven that can expose us. Auburn is the same way. Texas A&M, same way. They got a pretty good front seven. And unless our offensive line has a change, and they got to look themselves in the mirror and say, that can't happen again, because that's what put us behind the 8 ball against South Carolina was the front seven.
Well, I think a lot of that is put on James Coley's shoulders, too, because it's easy to stop a run when you know they're going to run. When you know you're going to run on second down and you know you're going to hit the middle of the line, then it's easy for Will Muschamp to draw up that stunt and stop it.
Yeah.
So that's on James Coley to get more creative to not give these O-linemen a bad look, not overload them,
Well, you give them 6, 7 men to block. There's 5 of them, so you got to have something come up on offense where you're going to have somebody sliding in there. Or main thing, just keep them on their toes. Mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously not what Georgia did this weekend.
Not at all.
But Georgia, like the fan base, we got to put it behind us and think, well, we're on to Kentucky, and it's a must-win. Every game is a must-win. No more hiccups. And really and truly, Georgia has to – we only fell to number 10.
Yeah.
It's not –
everything's still in front of us.
Right.
At the end of the season, this is either going to be a catalyst for something great or something horrible. And, right now we're just in that wait and see mode. You know what I'm saying?
It's either where things went right or where things went wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and it's up to the players and coaches to say which way it swings. The pendulum could swing either way right now for Georgia, and we're hoping it goes right. We've seen in the past with the LSU last year, it kind of brought the team together, and they ended up taking off. So
losing to an unranked team isn't. Teams have done that and still went to the playoff and played for national titles, and so it's not an end-all, be-all, but it's just hopefully a wake-up call. Like I was saying, this at the end of the year we'll look back at this and we'll either laugh or we'll cry. You know what I'm saying? That's where we're at with it.
It happens. It happens to almost. Clemson a couple of years ago lost to an unranked team. It happens to everybody except Alabama. Basically, we talked about 87 in a row. But to me, that just shows what level they're on right now.
Well, Nick Saban, Nick Saban's been doing this for so many years.
Right, but that was his 3rd stop as a head, 4th stop as a head coach, 3rd in college. So for Kirby, like I said, it's easy to compare him to Rick. I kind of see him kind of almost on that Dabo Swinney type, 10, 11 wins for a few years. But he's got to figure out something, talk with somebody, and figure out who he is as a head coach. Because right now, Mr. Conservative is not working. It didn't work for 15 years, so I don't know why somebody wants to come in and try to be Mr. Conservative all over again. Because it's not going to work. It's
funny because he didn't go very conservative in the SEC championship game last year. I wonder if that experience of kind of going hyper-aggressive and the 4th and 11 kind of stuck with him and maybe burned him a little bit and kind of got him a little shell-shocked going into this year about conservative-aggressive.
At the national championship, he was super conservative in that game. So I think more the SEC championship 4th and 11 pass was half desperation because he knew his defense was in trouble.
Yeah.
And half, it was a play that if it snapped on time, it works. Mm-hmm. Problem was it wasn't snapped on time and it turned out horribly wrong. But we saw him at LSU last season. They tried to fake field goal.
Yeah.
So Kirby has these times where he's kind of
going Jekyll and Hyde on us a little bit.
But at the end of the day, what I see is a super conservative. I've seen too many 3rd and 7 runs in field goal range where we settle for 3.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
To me, Kirby's come, especially this season, and maybe it's all the pressure, maybe it's all the hype going into. He coaches not to lose. Rarely do we see a Kirby Smart coach to win a game.
Yeah.
It's always let me coach, and that's pressure, man. That's the pressure of he's getting paid all this money to win these games, and he knows he's got to come out with a win. And now, at this point in the season, you got to just let it eat. And go get it, because there is no more room for a close game with Kentucky. Because you look after Kentucky, you got Florida, Missouri, Auburn, and A&M. You got four tough ones right there, and you better bring the juice because you're going to be in trouble if you don't.
Yeah, definitely, and especially after you just got exposed last week, and James Coley going to have to completely switch everything up, his mentality about the way he wants to go about things. Because if you don't think every other team is looking at that film saying, wow, this is the formula,
Every defensive line coach we're about to see is saying, all right, if y'all can do this, we can beat Georgia. Because until we prove otherwise, that's the way you beat Georgia. You dominate, and that's anybody. Let me just say, that's just about anybody. You can dominate the line of scrimmage. That's what got us in so much trouble in the past.
Yeah.
But right now, we got to find a way, shore up that front, and we'll be okay. I just think we got to quit being that super conservative.
Yeah.
And Georgia, we're tired of it. We've been this way for years and years, and it's time to see a little bit different. Kirby coming in with new energy, and he is a hyper guy. We love to see that. I'd like to see him coach and have his offense. Rather, it's him separate a little bit from the offense and say, do your thing. Because this defense is too good to be wasted.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't mind the run-to-pass ratio. It's just Jim Coley has not been creative with his runs at all, and that's a problem. I mean, you got to you can't just run it up the middle, left, middle, right. You got to run some traps. You got to run some counters. You got to maybe put two back there. Put James Cook and Swift back there, and then do a little read option type thing. You got to figure something out. So.
Harry being out with a lower back strain, but it's not an excuse. Georgia has too much talent.
Zamir's just as good as Brian, if not better. So it's not.
We have so much talent, even if it is an offensive lineman, a running back, a wide receiver. All these guys go down. Cornerbacks not playing. All these guys go down. Georgia, we have bragged about our recruiting as what separates us from everybody else.
Yeah.
And it should. This shouldn't ever happen. And now that it did, we, as fans, you have to look at it and say, all right, Kirby, show us where you're different than what we had before. Show us where this is not something that's going to happen every year. Because if we go down to Jacksonville and what used to happen before Kirby got here happens again, Kirby, for the first time as a head coach, are going to feel a little heat, and rightfully so, because of this recruiting has separated. And there's no excuse for what happened, and there's no excuse for it happening later on throughout the season.
Yeah, definitely. And this defense, like we said, it's going to keep you in every game. So all you got to do is go out and score some points.
Yeah, and shouldn't score 17, not with the talent we got.
No,
but speaking about Florida and South Carolina, they play this weekend, 12 o'clock in Gainesville. I don't really see South Carolina being able to pull a rabbit out of the hat twice. I think they got through with Georgia. I don't think they're going to be going down there and being able to beat Florida.
I think they'll play tough, though.
I do think they'll be able to keep it close. They got some energy going. They got a little bit of momentum, what they hadn't have.
Yeah.
And, of course, Will Muschamp's going to be nipping at the bit going down to Gainesville. They're going to be fired up. But how do you see this game playing out?
Well, I'd like to know more about whatever's going on with Helinski. Is he going to be back? What's the deal there? Because to me, that hinges a lot of the things that South Carolina wants to do. I mean, the other guy, his name is blanking me right now, but he's more of an athletic guy, and they said he can sling it. He can a little bit, but I think Ryan Helinski is going to be a good quarterback in this conference for a few years to come.
Yeah.
So I think getting him back will be important. But I think also on the Florida side, I think Jabari Zuniga and Jacob Grenard, I think both of them are kind of dealing with injuries right now. So if you can't get either of those guys back, I think that could be a huge key for South Carolina's offense, being able to put up some points and keep it close. Florida's defense could be a good bit gassed out too after going to Death Valley like that and the battle they had. So it's hard to tell. It'll be fun.
Go to the week before. They had the Auburn game, which was a tough game. They won by 11, but it was a close game, a tough battle. So you had back-to-back tough top 10 SEC battles. They're going to be beat down. And South Carolina come in there, and they pull that off, back-to-back upsets, which to them would be similar to what Auburn did in 17 when they beat Georgia and Bama.
Yeah.
And for South Carolina, they got to have this energy. And it all, like you said with Helinski, depending on that injury. The other game at 12 o'clock this weekend, interesting to me, it's Auburn and Arkansas. Arkansas seems they're not getting the W's. They're getting a little more than they did last year.
Yeah.
But you got to think, they're going to be that scary team. They're going to beat somebody.
Yeah.
Auburn has had this history of 12 o'clock kickoffs of sometimes struggling. Now, we know they had the bye week after the loss. We know their defense is great. Now, this Auburn offense, they might put up 550 yards total offense and blow them out.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas came in there and gave them a fight just because Chad Morris needs a big win to go on his resume.
And I think that's how it kind of goes sometimes in football. I think, we was talking about this before the show. I think it's kind of like a law averages thing. The fact that some of these teams go out here and blow these teams out by 14, 21, 28, that's not normal in college football. That's not normal in the SEC. It's been an outlier for the past few years, but to me, that's not normal. Even through Nick Saban's first 6-7 years, it wasn't like that. There was battles that they would get in, week out with some of these teams. You know what I'm saying? So I think all this is starting to kind of come down to an average to where all the teams are starting to get better, and you're not just going to run over folks like you used to be able to. So
right. I mean, that's how most of these everybody but Alabama. We said it earlier. They're still going to blow out Arkansas.
Oh, they're going to take care of business most days.
And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So Arkansas, I think they could have a chance. And like I said, they might go in there and just get blown out 60 to nothing again. And we've seen that happen with Auburn before.
Totally.
But this game has something to it where Auburn has kind of slowed down after losses in the past. With Gus being there, they've kind of changed. But if they can go in here and blow out Arkansas,
regain some momentum.
And you look at their schedule moving ahead,
yeah,
they got winnable games where they could go into LSU in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They could have that one loss going to LSU, and you never know how that's going to be. But LSU, man, they're looking dominant. I think they're the best team in the country right now just by who they've beaten and the way they've gone about doing it.
Yeah.
Them and Auburn in a couple weeks look bad, but that matchup with LSU and Alabama looks like it's going to be circa 2011, 2012, 13, when it was the mega matchup game of the year.
So it's going to be the exact opposite because now both defenses are suspect and both
it's going to be high
offenses
scoring.
are dynamite.
I think it's 2011. The final score
was
was
9-6. Yeah.
I think 7 minutes into the game they'll blow by that.
Yeah, I think it'll be about 55-40. You know what I'm saying?
It's going to be insane because Burrow's playing amazing right now. He's playing Heisman type games, and then Tua's doing Tua stuff down. So that game's way into the future.
Well, Ed Orgeron went out and got what he needed, man. He got somebody high power from the league, and they dissected this passing game. And I think I commend Ed Orgeron for delegating out those responsibilities and changing.
Yeah.
And I think that's something Kirby could look at and say, "Wow, I could do something like that."
Nick did it while Kirby was there. Nick went out there and got Lane Kiffin because he said, "Hey, the game's changing.
Yeah,
this is the way football's being played. You can't just line up and pound it."
Yeah.
And granted, you could if Georgia. But the triple option days are over with. The ground and pound days are over with. Everybody's fast now. Everybody's strong now. You gotta figure. You can't just overpower people. We saw that with South Carolina. We tried to overpower them.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And it didn't work. So you got to spread out. And Georgia has so much team speed. They got to be able to use it. And to me, when they got 8 in the box, where's the slant?
Yeah.
We got home from the game and I watched the LSU game. LSU's burning them up on slants, getting right behind that Florida defense. And you're not seeing that with Georgia. When you're at the game and you're seeing all these safeties creep up, take a shot.
Yeah.
Move around. And hopefully this Georgia offense can see the changes that needs to be made. And hopefully Coley's the guy. Hopefully Coley gets in there and he mixes it up. But if not, Georgia could be in trouble right now, especially with all the hype that this show, every media outlet put on the offseason. Georgia is catching Bama. That's all the time we got this week. Go to Twitter @NothingFinerPod. Facebook.com/NothingFinerPod. YouTube, if you're already there, hit subscribe, please. Like the video. If iTunes are on there, Nothing Finer Pod, we're everywhere. Just search Nothing Finer Pod. You're probably going to find us. Georgia, Kentucky this week, 6 p.m. We'll both be there. God bless. Go Dogs.
Out in the woods, you'll find me. Somewhere out under, fishing in a creek where there ain't no